Welcome to Lesson 7, Absolute Value Equations and Inequalities. Our essential questions for today are: how do you represent relationships between quantities that are not equal, and how do you solve an equation and inequality using an absolute value? Our focus today is going to be on solving and graphing equations and inequalities involving an absolute value. So let's look back at what an absolute value means. An absolute value is how far a number is from 0. So negative 5 is 5 spots from 0. So the absolute value of negative 5 is 5. 7 is 7 spots from 0. So the absolute value of 7 is 7. Solving an absolute value equation. What are the solutions of the absolute value of x plus 2 equals 9? Graph and check the solutions. So in this case, we're going to solve this problem the same way we would solve any of the other equations we have. We're going to work backwards. So you need to subtract 2 from both sides, and you'd be left with the absolute value of x equals 7. Remember, x is how far it is from 0. So it's 7 spaces from 0. That means it could be 7 spaces to the left, so x equals negative 7. Or 7 spaces to the right, so x equals 7. So the absolute value of x equals 7 means x could be 7 or x could be negative 7. And graphing it would be your dot on negative 7 and 7. So a key concept of solving absolute value equations is when you solve the absolute value of a, where a represents a variable expression and b is greater than 0, a is going to either equal a, or a is going to either equal b, or a is going to equal negative b. So if you look at the equation, the absolute value of the quantity 2x minus 5 equals 13. This means this equation, 2x minus 5, will either equal 13 or negative 13. You do have to solve both equations because x could be either value. So add 5 to both sides, and then divide both sides by 2. You have x equals 9, or x equals negative 4. If you were to graph this, it would just be your dots like the one before. Solving an absolute value equation with no solution. You will have absolute value equations that have no solution. So in order to solve this problem, you're going to solve it the way you would any other equation. You want to do the opposite of your order of operations. So this means you're going to start with addition subtraction. You have plus 12, so that means you're going to subtract 12 from both sides. Now you need to divide to get rid of your multiplying by 3. So you have the square root of the quantity 2z plus 9 equals negative 2/3. If you think about absolute values and their rules, you can't have a negative absolute value. So there is no solution. The absolute value of an expression cannot be negative, so there's no solution. Key concept of solving absolute value inequalities. So in this case, to solve an inequality in the form the absolute value a is less than b, where a is a variable expression and b is greater than 0, your compound inequality means a is going to be between negative b and b. Or you can have absolute value of a is less than equal to b, or absolute value of a is greater than equal to b. So you can have an and situation, or you can have an or situation. It is easier if you graph it to see the difference. So what are the solutions of 8n is greater than equal to 24? You want to think it first. What does that even mean? An inequality says that 8n is at least going to be, and your absolute value part means it's at least 24 units from 0 on the number line. That means you can be 24 units from 0 to the left, which makes it negative, or 24 units from 0 to the right, which would make it a positive. You do need to flip your sign. So you're going to keep, flip, change. You then need to isolate your variable just like you would when you solve any other equation. So divide everything by 8. So you have n is less than or equal to -3, or n is greater than or equal to 3. In this case it's an or. They go in opposite directions. You graph both. So what are the solutions of the quantity 2x plus 4 is greater than or equal to 5? Remember, you need to have both a positive and a negative. When you make it negative, you need to change your sign. So you have 2x plus 4 is greater than or equal to 5, and 2x plus 4 is less than or equal to -5. Add or subtract 4 from both sides, divide both sides by 2, and then graph. Your graph would look like that. Please come to live class and then complete your homework, and hopefully we will see you in live class.